Hey guys, how you going? Welcome back to our series of Tsukamaki. This is our third and final episode. We made it! For those of you that have been following along, I've been rebuilding a Tsuka for my dojo friend, Dojo Steve. A big shout out to him, Senpai Steve. So he's the one of the senior students there, and he was most courageous enough to give me a go at rewrapping his handle for him. And this one is the final episode, as I've just said, and I'll take you through the Hishigami process and all that prep leading up to the final part where we wrap the handle, and how we apply the Ito. And this is how it's turned out, guys. So those of you that have been following along, you will probably remember what it started out like. Just see if that can focus there. And this is the final product. Not too shabby. And that was what led us all through these 3 episodes. It was the Kashira that was coming loose, and the wrap was also. So he asked me if I could rewrap the handle for him, which I have just completed. It's been a day, I tell you. But my fingers are sore, but the immense satisfaction that I get out of this is just unbelievable. It's challenging, it's exacting work, but I think that also is what makes it so rewarding. And if I could get a little bit nostalgic, philosophical, I guess, when you're doing this, it's for me, it's remembering that this has been around for centuries. So doing it right, doing it properly, doing it just to the best of your ability is honouring centuries-old tradition. And I'm not going to say I'm channeling the old handle makers or anything like that, but I'm recognizing the skills and the talents that are needed for this exacting work, and I'm bowing to them, and I'm doing my best to uphold that tradition when it comes to this type of thing. I love everything about Iaido, and I think a good tradesman should know his tools. Whatever you're into, I think it's worth your while to find out everything there is to know about it. And when it comes to katana maintenance, this is a part of it I really enjoy. So I hope you do too. This next episode will be mainly on fast forward, because I just want to do a bit of a voiceover and sort of take you through the rundown of everything that I do, the materials I use, and the different things that are going on throughout the process. But I've used the handle wrapping part as a bit of a fast forward thing, so you guys can watch along without it being too tedious. And if you have any questions, queries, or comments, please feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you guys. And I just want to say a big thank you for your support. I'm slowly getting more subscribers, more likes, more reach, that type of thing, and I'm very happy that I'm providing something that people are interested in, and that again is a reward in and of itself. So my humble thanks and gratitude to you all that are watching, and in the future subscribers and likers, I also extend my thanks to you. And if you have any sort of ideas, anything you would like to see or see me attempt, fire it at me. I'm game if you are. But I hope you enjoyed this last episode. I'm going to try and keep it fairly short, guys. And then what I'm probably going to do is a series of reviews on these bad boys behind me here. Not sure whether I want to start with the Hanwei Practical Elite or the Winter Sun Katana from Dragon King. So if you have a preference, let us know. The most people that mention either one, that's probably the one I'll be doing. But for now, guys, I hope you enjoy this last episode of Tsukamaki, and I hope we show you something maybe that you don't know, or if you're an experienced handle wrapper, chime in, tell me how I'm doing. But the whole idea of this channel is to provide something of interest to you, and to hopefully carry on the tradition and knowledge that the samurais have carried for so many centuries. So hope you enjoy it, guys. Keep on swinging. See you soon. So what we started with was loose Ito and a Kashira on the Tsuka, so we completely broke the handle down. You can see there that Samigawa needed reconditioning, so I polished everything back, sanded the handle, reconditioned the Samigawa, repainted it, and as you can see here, these are all the components ready to go back in. So I re-glued the Samigawa, bound the handle overnight. You can see a pile of Hishigami there, and we're just going to move into how that's done now. How you going, folks? Now, before we get into rewrapping the handle, I just want to give you a bit of background on the Hishigami. These are the paper triangles that will be fitting underneath the Ito wrap. And I've pre-made them already, but I just want to take you through the steps that I've done in order to get the right length and shape. So what you're doing initially is you're using the Seigyo that you're going to be using to rewrap the handle, the new stuff, and you're just winding 2 strips around the Tsuka as tight as you would when you're actually going to be wrapping the handle. You can see I've got 2 lengths there. So what you need is this measurement here, of both those strands, and the measurement of how far the Hishigami is going to come into the handle. So first off, you're measuring this area here, and for this job, this is around about 1.5 millimeters or 1.5 centimeters. So you're taking that measurement, and you're taking a bit less than half of the length or the flat here on the scale. So what we're doing is, if I just place this here, hope you can see that, guys, that is more or less 3 centimeters. So it wants to be a little bit less than half that. So 1.5 is half. So you're probably looking at around about, for this job, around about 12 to 13 millimeters. And that will just give you that little bit of space in the middle here when you're tying the transitions and folding the Ito onto the Tsuka. So this is one that I've already made, obviously, and you can see the length fits just nicely in there. If I got it the right way. Yep, just nicely in there. And then if I try and fold that up, it's a little bit fiddly at this stage. So that's him there. And you'll see it just comes just before that midline in the Tsuka. So that's how you initially get your dimensions for what the Hishigami should be. So for this job, the length is 1.5, and I'm going for 1.3 into the center there. And that will give you enough room to play and allow you to set the Hishigami along this line here. And then as you're wrapping the handle, you'll be adjusting and using your various tools to keep it nice and tight in the transitions. So there's a little short video that I'll interlace with this to show you the folding process and the cutting process. This is the fiddliest bit, apart from just fine tuning the wrap as you're going and to wrap it properly and keeping it nice and tight. But that basically is how you're getting your measurements for the dimensions of the Hishigami. And you can see I've got a whole pile here. This isn't all of them, but ready to go. Now the paper I have used, I'll just quickly give you a look there so we can take that off now. It is called Hoshin rice paper, and I like this stuff. You can get this at any sort of craft shop. There's a craft shop called Eckersley's, but any good sort of craft or paper shop, even office work places like that, if you're viewing in Australia, might have something similar to this. Now the reason I like this paper is it looks thin, but it's actually quite sturdy. You've got a lovely texture on this side, so it's lovely textured paper, but on the other side it's a little bit smoother. And so when I'm folding the Hishigami, I'll be folding into the smooth side. I just find that the glue sticks a bit better and it's a bit easier to work with, and that will leave the rougher side on the exterior of the Hishigami, which means that it'll just offer just that little bit more grip and texture in order to bed into the Semigawa. So what you'll probably notice here now, this is looking a little bit different to last time we saw it. So I've dressed the handle, I've taken off all the excess paint, I have just lightly sanded back all surfaces in order to take away any residues, any old glues, any old paint, things like that. You can see there I've done a bit of work on that, the crack that was present, and that's turned out really well. So I just used some Gorilla Glue there. As previously discussed in the video, I bound the handle overnight, and that's come up really strong, really neat. I've filled in all the little bits there that have come away. You can't see it, but that is actually into the handle as well, and I'll file that out on the inside of the handle. Probably can't see that, just to make sure that the Nagasa fits quite well back into the Tsuka here. I've reprofiled the end there where the Kashira sits, and there's a nice little lip in there now, and just through filing a bit and placing this on, checking for fit, filing a bit, and just going through that process, I now have a nice, neat little fit right there, and that'll just sit in and allow us to tie that end knot really well. So it's come up really nice. The two different panels there, they've blended in well. It's all been stuck on quite well. What I used was, it's a woodworking glue called Boncrete. Excuse me. And that's just going to make sure that all stays where it is. If you don't do that and just use like a lighter glue, what you'll find is it will start to separate or come away from the handle a little bit. And as you're using the handle, you'll notice there's little bubbles, or it might even make a little slight popping noise as you're moving through the handle. So that is it for that. We're all pretty much ready to rewrap now, guys, and that'll be the greater portion of the video from here on in. So it's just a matter now of cutting your Seigyo to length, putting this on your stand, and we're starting from that side. This is the presentation side. So as this is sitting on the belt, ready to use, obviously the blade is going up that way. So this is the side where you normally start the wrapping, And then just so you know, the Manuki will sit traditionally or commonly about 3 diamonds up. So when you get into your 3rd diamond, that's where you place the first Manuki. But what I'll do is, just with elastic bands, we set the Manuki pretty much where we think it's going to be, put a rubber band on it, so then we don't have to worry about it. When we come to it, that slips off and the ETO wrap takes over from that and beds that into the handle where it should be. So the process is coming along nicely, and now we're going to move into the wrapping side of things. So I hope you're enjoying it, guys, and let's crack on, shall we? So when folding or initially creating the Hishigami, the important thing here is just to make sure that your fold lines are nice and crisp. And what I'm doing, I think I'm into my 2nd fold here, so I just sort of pre-crease it with a ruler. And then when I've got that set, we run through with just some normal, I think it's UHT paper glue. This is an organic based glue, so no solvents involved here. And we're just rolling that paper. I think I rolled this one probably around about 15 times, but you can vary that depending on what size or thickness you want the Hishigami. The important thing is just making sure that the creases are right and that you're pretty exacting into how you're making this. You see me just running the ruler there to make sure that everything's nice and crisp where we're folding it. What I did for the last 5 of these rolls is only do it on one side, and that just leaves a little bit of an ellipse on one of the sides of the Hishigami. When you're happy with the length, I mark out probably 5 mil, and then we cut that. So when we fold it over, it's going to basically meet in the middle of what we've already folded, and that'll just seal it nicely. I'm seeing there just marking out, so be careful with the pressure of the pencil. You don't need a lot of pressure. You're not going to see the pencil marks, but what you don't want to do is put too much pressure in and rip the paper, put holes in it, that type of thing. So you can see here I'm just doing this final border, just marking it in with the pencil. And then of course after that we're cutting it out and gluing that last profile. And you can see there, so you know, I'm working on a bench that's got a towel on it. It's just something I do to offer the table a little bit more protection when I'm banging and clanging tools and whatnot. So if you can't get the glue, just use an old ruler as a bit of a backing, slide the glue on, and then you're ready to fold that up. And like I said, this is the fiddliest bit. This is where you just got to make sure your measurements are okay, and you know, you can work with what you have in the end of it. So we're folding that up, making it nice and crisp, just making sure that everything's covered in glue, everything's adhering quite nicely. And you'll see here in a minute as I've finished, I'll hold up the ends, and that's that little ellipse I was talking about. So it's fatter on one side than the other, because I started in the last 5 folds to only crease one edge. So what that does is just give the Hishigami a bit more volume, and you know, it's paper. You can mold it to how you want in the end, but I find that if you have that little bit of extra body to it, then it's just easy to work once you get on the handle. So remembering that the length for this job is 1.5, and that's what I'm marking out there. So we just go along marking the base of the triangles, and then when that's done, I mark halfway along that base. So I think from memory it was around about 7 mil, and I'm just projecting those lines up. So I'm just making those markings a little longer, and as I follow that through to the other edge of the Hishigami, that will give me the points of the triangles, and you'll see that there in a moment as I'm just free-handing, just basically free sketching the triangles into the Hishigami. You don't, you know, like I said, you have to be fairly accurate with your measurements, but you don't really have to worry about the pencil marks. And indeed, what I did with this Hishigami was actually color them black. And that's just something you can do. Depends, of course, what color Ito you're using. If you're using a blue or some other color, I think black would still work. But when you're using the lighter colors or different colors, if you've got a tan or something like that, you might want to color match somewhat the Hishigami. That way, if there's any separation, it's not going to show through. And you can see there the triangles back and forward, how I've projected up that middle line to make the point of them. And now we're just cutting them to shape. So instead of alternating as I go and having to cut one way, then another, one way, then another, I cut one way, and it'll give you these little rhomboidic, I guess you could call it, rhomboid sort of shapes. And then of course, when you finish that, I'll just go and I'll cut along the other side of that line, and that gives you your little triangles, your Hishigami. So it's all in the prep. This is where it pays off in the end. If you're precise with all this, that's what you end up with, a whole pile of them. For each handle, you're probably looking to anywhere between 50, 60. Now you'll notice this little black strip. I placed that at the very first transition, right up here near the Fuchi. It's a little bit less than the length of the Ito, but you can see there that I've marked on there, that is where that strip goes, right there. And again, this just lifts that Ito a little bit and allows those transitions to happen nice and smoothly. After that, you're falling back into the regular Hishigami triangles. The only other variants that I could probably suggest is sometimes, depending on the size of the manuki there, excuse me, you may need slightly bigger Hishigami so that the Ito wrap comes up and meets the top of that manuki. You don't want it sort of collapsing around the manuki, so sometimes, I didn't have to for this one because they're fairly flat, but sometimes you may have to just make 4, 5, or 6, I should say, Hishigami that are slightly thicker in order for that Ito to come up smoothly and around the manuki there. You'll notice there's little paper strips on the side of the Tsuka as well. That's double-sided tape. So I just keep that covered until I need it. It saves accidentally rubbing it, taking off some of the adhesion of it. So as we turn over, you reset the Tsuka, make sure everything's in place, and you'll get into a rhythm, you'll get into a pattern as to what works best for you. I'm just using a couple of elastic bands to keep that tension down on the handle. You can use like elastic Oki straps, I think they're called, to do the same thing. And again, with the paper glue, it's non-solvent glue, and we're just setting the Hishigami there. You can set one Hishigami at once, or you can place both in, either. Sometimes it's easy for me just to set one, do a twist, and then before I tighten everything up, set that other Hishigami in. You'll notice here that it's important to keep them sort of set where you want, and it's half the Hishigami should be sort of, or a bit less than half, should be hanging out the other side of the Ito when you make this turn. So it's turning once and twice. So there's the first turn, and just making sure that other one is fairly well set where you want it. And then we're twisting again, making that second turn, and then coming down onto the handle there, and then pulling this other side up and over, and you'll see it will meet into that other Hishigami there. So it's important also to keep tension on. How I usually do it is just wrap that Ito around my hand and give it a bit of tension. And then while I'm working on the other side, as you'll see here, I'm twisting once, twisting twice, then I'm moving that thumb over to keep that tension on, and then I'll position that Ito around my hand like so. And then we're giving it a nice firm pull, and then into the tools, and we're making sure that everything's marrying up. We're making sure that the edge of the Ito is coming down around the Hishigami, and then it's just a matter of working the knot and making sure you're happy with how everything is sitting on the Tsuka there. So that is about it. I just wanted to show you this little bit in real time, and making sure that it's pushed up nice and even, edges are folded in, so then you can come along, hammer it down, put everything in place, and repeat the process. So let's go, peeps. Oh yeah, folks. So here we are at the end knot. I just want to say, if you've made it this far with me, well done. So before we complete this knot, I just want to run you through, and this is probably where people get most apprehensive. I know the pressure goes up when I'm sort of doing this end knot, and you know, you've done all this work, takes a few hours, and it's sort of like, yes, I'm almost there, and the temptation is to try and rush it, try and get it done. You can get a bit frustrated. You can see the finish line, but it's not quite there. But I encourage you just to slow down through this whole process. You would have known seen that the video is sort of stop, start, stop, start. And that's mainly because if I feel like I need to take a break, then I'll just secure everything, get up, take a deep breath, have a bit of a stretch, and walk around for around about 15-20 minutes, and then back into it. If you can do this all in one go, you go for your life. I've sat here and done it, done a handle pretty much all in one go. I was a bit sort of stiff, sore and sorry the next day, but that was purely because I was in the flow, I was enjoying it, and things were going well. These sort of days though, I tend to take lots of little mini breaks, and that just keeps the mind fresh. It's amazing, if you walk away then come back, you can sort of see it in a different light, you can assess things, you can see stuff that you maybe wouldn't have seen before, and then straighten that back up and go and fix it up. So before we get into this end knot, excuse me, so where you're starting this knot is on I've just got a little tag there, on the Ura side. So this is the side that's facing in when you're wearing the katana traditionally in the obi by your side. So this would be the back of the blade through here. So that is the moon side, this is the ha side, this is the Ura, and the Amoto is on the other side. So when you're wearing the katana in your belt, this side is the side that's facing out, this side is the side that's facing in. So this is the Ura knot, this is where you begin. What I'm using is a bit of poly string, it's really very, very strong. And this is a leather crafting needle. You can get curved needles, I've got one around here somewhere, but I find this one's really good because you can, I hope you can see that, you can slip the material into I'll get it in picture, that might help, into there. So the end of this needle opens up slightly and you slip the material into it, and then as you close, you've got some little teeth there that bite back down, and that won't come back out. So I find these I think are more leatherworking type needles, and I find them really handy. So what I usually do is slip that through there, leave that loop there, and then I would loop the ito through that, and then we're pulling that through the knots there. I just find that is the easiest way. When I first started, I was trying to lift the ito, push it through. I was using plastic strips like this, which worked to some degree. This is a bit of ingenuity. You've got to be resourceful. This is actually an old pot plant peg that they use. So what I do is used to do is fold that over, place the ito just inside there, and I'd tape that up and feed that through. And I'd usually have to, where are we, get a pair of just little tools, little crafting tools, and grab hold of that, as you can see, and just pull that through that way. I just find the way I just showed you a lot more direct, a lot easier. But where are we here? What are we doing? I'm glad you asked. So what we've done here is on the moon side, where you've just finished your last transition on the other side, we're bringing this fella up over your last set of triangles. So you can see it comes up, over, and under there. So I'll cinch that down now, and of course when you get to this, you're again making sure that tension's there. We're really keeping that pressure on, and that's all pretty much locked now, so I don't have to be hanging on for grim death. I don't have to be keeping that tension. I'm not using clamps anymore through the process. So we're on the home stretch. So we've got enough tension there, that's come through. So all we're doing here is just pulling that through to keep that nice and tight. Now on the other side, what we're doing is we're bringing this one on the other side over the top of all that. So you can see there where I've just pulled through, he's going under, over, pull through, and initially don't pull everything tight. Keep everything loose so you can check how the ito is going. If there's any folds or anything like that, you can get it back out and you can rework it. And I hope you can see this. I know it's black on black. It can be a little hard, a little difficult, but you know, doing my best here with the light we've got. So on this side, we're coming over this one. So he sits down once he's done, and he's over there into that transition, and then looping back and through. So we're pulling that to the side, and he's coming back down. So this one is gone up and over the top. This one is going over the top, around, underneath. So that's the other end of him there. So what we're doing here with this one is, again, and you can use whatever tool is comfortable for you. I've got a whole array of different tools here, from this fine little pick. This is actually supposed to be a gouging tool for, I think it's for leather and woodwork, but I've blunted it off just a little bit there, and you might have seen through the video. I use that to sort of cinch up the triangles. It's got a flatter piece here on the wood, and I use that to sort of really push in or pull through the triangles to help those transitions sit well. Little hammer, which is really handy. It's just heavy enough to get, you know, very consistent hammering done, and it's not going to overstress the handle or the Ito wrap. And then to finish off, I usually use a little or a larger hammer, and that is to bed everything in. And again, I'm not fully gripping it and belting into the handle. I've got a half grip on it, and it's just tapping everything down. So you can vary the pressure as you need, but again, less is more. And you know, when you get into a few of these, that you'll know what sort of pressure and where to hammer. So where was I? So we're just going to make sure that that is sitting flat, and that is transitioned up into here quite nicely. And just remember, we're working with, not forcing. You know, working with, not trying to submiss anything, not trying to force anything into working for us. We're working with the materials, and just keep that in mind. You've got to work with it. You start pushing, prying and forcing stuff, and that's when it all goes south. So what I've done there, we've got the flats coming out here, and there's a slight curve, so we don't sort of pull it through straight. We keep a nice little curve in the Ito, and then when we're happy with the tension that's going on there, which I am, we're going to pull that down. Gorgeous. And then again, this is, you know, you might have heard the term dressing the knots, and this is what we're doing. We're dressing everything, making sure it's all where it should be, and this turns into that beautiful little triangle that sits and locks everything in. So we're just making sure that that's got a nice little slight fold in it there. Again, this is why we don't just run through and tighten everything up flat out on the first go. We're making sure everything's set, everything's where it should be. And you can see as I pull that, the tendency is for it to go a little bit lopsided. So we're pulling him so he's even. And you can just work the edges of the Ito as needed. And it's a process, guys, right to the end. You know, and this is how you make it your own. This is how certain craftsmen or individuals that do this type of thing, you can see in the tiny little nuances when they work, all the little differences. They stylize it through their patience and their ability to work with the materials. That's about where we want it. That's about all we got there. So, and I might just continue to keep dressing that a little bit, but that is the Ura side knot. And now that that's done, we'll move on to the other side, put the Kashira on, and we're almost done, guys. Almost done.
Okay guys, so here we are back at the end knot. So as you can see, I've just finished working on this one. I hope you can see that. I've just put a bit of white here to try and contrast the patterning here, but we've just finished this side and I've just started on the other side. Doesn't that look attractive? So basically, and there's a bit more to do here on this side, but what we're doing, you can see here, both sides of the uto have come through the Kashira. This is those there. So what happens is your right hand side one loops back up and through that last transition, and that's him there. So if I pull, you can see that. And then with the other strand on the left hand side, you're doing a similar thing. It's coming back up under that transition, but as you're doing that, you're catching the end of the ito on the right hand side and placing that through as you're pulling that on. So as I tighten all this up, that will all come up into this last transition. The only other thing I have to do is place this one back down through here on this side, like that. And then when that's all dressed and tidied, we'll be cutting both ends and just tucking them up underneath the transitions there. It's very difficult, I've found, to display this in video. There's a lot of different people that have tried. There's a lot of stills. I found this one here, which isn't too bad. So that shows you the first knot we did, and 1, 2, 3, 4 goes through the steps there, and then we turn it over, and this shows you pretty much where we're up to now. So I think, just for clarity, if you want further instruction on that, there is plenty out there on Google of different people displaying the end knots. There's a couple of different ways to do it. I just suggest find a way that is easiest for you and go from there. You can always develop your knots along the way. You can incorporate different things. You can try different things as well. And it's basically just where you're at, what you can do, and then growing from there. So I'll continue to push on with this one. And then I'll get back to you and we'll show you the finished product. But you will still need Hishigami. I have placed the Hishigami right through, even with these ones that have fed around to start the knot, and that is just purely because we want the transitions to be nice and flush here on the end. This was the problem that started all this, so the last thing I want is for that to be unfinished or loose. So that is really tight. That's not going to go anywhere. And this is the end knot here where we're at. So once again, both of the ito come through here. You're feeding the right hand side in and around. Left hand side does the same thing. There it is there. But as you're looping this one, so instead of going around and under, this one is going around and under and catching the right one. So as you cinch that up, that's going to pull that up there nice and tight. And then the only thing we have to do is bring that around, bring that back through, pull him tight, and then that's where we cut and shut and we finish up. So that's the progress, and the next video will be me displaying this all finished. Thanks guys.